the story of how I became a distinguished pilot and helped win World War II. I was just 18 when I first stepped onto the airfield, my heart pounding with a mix of excitement and fear. The sun reflected off the wings of the waiting planes, and the roar of engines vibrated through the ground beneath my boots. I had dreamed of flying since I was a boy, watching birds soar freely above the meadows near my village, imagining the sky as a limitless battlefield where courage and skill decided fate. But nothing had prepared me for the reality of military aviation. From the very first day, I realized that becoming a pilot during wartime was not about glamour. It was about survival. Instructors with steely eyes and unwavering discipline tested us relentlessly. They scrutinized every movement, every decision, every glance. We ran drills in the cold morning air, learned to navigate by compass and stars, and practiced emergency procedures until exhaustion became our constant companion. Some students collapsed under the pressure. Others persevered, driven by a mixture of pride, fear, and ambition. I knew that failure was not an option. During the initial flight lessons, I felt the plane respond to every shift of my hands on the controls. The sensation was intoxicating, the wind rushing past, the earth falling away beneath me, the horizon stretching it endlessly. But there was also terror. One miscalculation, one hesitation could mean death. My instructors drilled us on the consequences of error, recounting stories of young pilots who had vanished in the clouds or crashed into forests, victims of inexperience and recklessness. I made a silent vow. I would survive. I would master this sky. Beyond skill, they taught us discipline. Every aspect of our lives was regimented. The way we maintained our aircraft, the meticulous checks before takeoff, the hours spent memorizing maps and coordinates. I began to understand that flying a warplane was not merely a physical task. It demanded mental precision, psychological fortitude, and the ability to remain calm under pressure. These lessons would later save my life in the skies over Europe, where split-second decisions determined whether I returned home or became another lost figure in the endless expanse of war. After weeks of ground drills, maps, and endless classroom lessons, the day finally came for my first solo flight. The airfield felt different that morning, almost alive, as if it knew my fear. My hands shook as I climbed into the cockpit, the smell of oil and fuel sharp in my nostrils. The instructor's words echoed in my mind. Trust yourself, trust your machine, but never underestimate the sky. The engine roared to life, and the vibrations coursed through my body. I taxied toward the runway, feeling every bump, every shift in the soil beneath the wheels. The first takeoff was a blur of adrenaline. The moment the plane lifted from the ground, my stomach lurched, and for an instant I thought I might never come back down. The wind screamed past the canopy, carrying with it the weight of responsibility that I was only beginning to understand. Solo flights quickly became the norm. Each mission taught me lessons no classroom could convey. How the plane reacted to sudden gusts of wind, how to compensate for uneven weight distribution, how to anticipate the behavior of my aircraft under extreme conditions. Every maneuver was a delicate negotiation with physics and fate. One error could cost my life, and yet with every successful landing, my confidence grew. I began to feel that the plane was no longer just a machine. It became an extension of my body, my mind, my will. Yet the psychological challenge was as severe as the physical one. Isolation in the sky forced me to confront my deepest fears. High above the clouds alone, I wrestled with the thought that I was expendable, just another number in a war that seemed infinite. Nights were often the hardest. In the barracks, exhausted and tense, I lay awake, listening to the wind and distant engines, knowing that my skills would soon be tested not in training, but in combat. The camaraderie among fellow pilots was a fragile comfort. We shared dreams, fears, and whispered stories of relatives lost to the war, trying to anchor ourselves in humanity before the sky demanded we shed it. Beyond personal survival, training emphasized strategy. I learned the art of aerial combat, studying formations, tactics, and the psychology of dogfights. We analyzed historical missions, dissecting every decision made by pilots in life and death situations. It became clear that instinct alone could not carry a pilot to victory. Preparation, calculation, and anticipation were equally crucial. My instructors drilled us relentlessly, using both praise and intimidation to forge competence from uncertainty. By the end of the training phase, I was no longer just a teenager with a dream. I was a disciplined operator, prepared to face an enemy in the skies. Then came the first assignment, a reconnaissance mission near enemy lines. I was terrified, but I felt the weight of responsibility pressing me forward. Every takeoff was a test of skill, every minute in the sky a delicate dance with danger. I realized that bravery was not the absence of fear, but the mastery of it. As the ground receded beneath me and the horizon stretched endlessly, I began to understand what it meant to truly fight for survival, and for a cause greater than myself. The moment I received my first combat assignment, a strange calm settled over me. After months of rigorous training, the reality of war was finally arriving. Not as theory, not as simulation, but as a tangible, breathing force waiting in the skies above enemy territory. I remember standing by the airfield, the early morning mist curling around the wings of my fighter plane, feeling the weight of history pressing on my young shoulders. At 18, I was no longer just a trainee. I was now a participant in a conflict that had already claimed millions. The first mission was reconnaissance over hostile territory. As we climbed into formation with seasoned pilots, I noticed the precision in their movements, the confidence in their gestures. Every pilot had a story etched into his face, some proudly worn, others marked by silent fear. My mentor, a grizzled veteran with eyes that seemed to pierce through clouds, leaned over and whispered, "Trust your training. The sky doesn't forgive hesitation." Those words would echo in my mind for years to come. As we crossed the border into enemy airspace, tension became a living entity. Every shadow, every glint of sunlight off a distant surface could be a threat. My hands gripped the controls tighter than ever, knuckles white, heart pounding. The first encounter with enemy aircraft was both terrifying and exhilarating. Planes darted in the distance like hawks, weaving unpredictably. The roar of engines became a symphony of danger, each note demanding reaction, calculation, and courage. I fired at a target for the first time in combat, my body shaking, breath held, and saw it spiral into smoke below. That moment, the raw collision of training and reality, was unforgettable. Each sortie became a lesson in survival. I quickly learned that fear was both a tool and an enemy. It heightened awareness, but could also freeze judgment. I memorized the nuances of every maneuver. Climbing too sharply could stall the plane. Diving too fast could tear the wings apart. Underestimating the enemy's speed could mean death. Every encounter Whether it ended in victory or retreat, etched into my mind a code: precision, patience, and relentless observation. Combat was not only about skill, it was about timing, intuition, and understanding human behavior under stress. I watched my fellow pilots react in microseconds to threats, their instincts honed by countless hours in the sky. I had to learn quickly to internalize patterns, to predict movements. One mistake could end not only my life, but the lives of my comrades. There were moments when I felt an almost surreal connection to the aircraft, as if the machine itself were an extension of my senses, responding to my thoughts before my hands even moved. But the war was unforgiving. I witnessed friends fall from the skies, planes spiraling down in trails of fire and smoke. The grief was immediate, raw, and haunting. Each loss reinforced the stark reality: skill alone did not guarantee survival. Every decision carried weight beyond the cockpit. Every mission was a gamble with mortality. Nights were spent replaying flights, analyzing errors, wondering if I could have saved a comrade with a different choice, a different angle, a fraction of a second. As the months passed, I adapted. I became more than a pilot. I became a strategist. I anticipated enemy tactics, learned to use terrain and weather to my advantage, and developed a mental resilience that seemed almost unnatural. The war taught lessons that no classroom could: the limits of human endurance, the interplay between fear and courage, and the fragile line between life and death. By the end of my first year in combat, I had not only survived, but had started to earn the respect of my squadron. My first confirmed victories were not just milestones, they were proofs of transformation. The boy who had climbed into a cockpit with trembling hands was now a force in the sky. Each successful sortie reinforced the idea that training, instinct, and mental fortitude were inseparable. I began to see myself as part of something larger, a collective effort that demanded skill, bravery, and sacrifice. Every maneuver I executed, every mission completed, was a contribution to the war effort, and each victory, no matter how small, was a step toward tipping the balance. The war also revealed the human dimension of heroism. It wasn't just aerial victories. It was protecting inexperienced pilots, rescuing those shot down, and maintaining cohesion under unimaginable stress. Leadership wasn't about orders. It was about inspiring confidence, demonstrating competence, and making decisions that could mean life or death. I realized that to be a true pilot in this war, I needed to master not only my aircraft, but also the art of human trust and teamwork. By the time I was awarded my first commendation, I had already seen enough death, bravery, and fear to fill a lifetime. Yet the war continued to escalate, and with each mission I grew stronger, sharper, and more attuned to the demands of combat. I was no longer a novice. I had become a pilot forged by fire, ready to face the unthinkable and prepared to contribute to the victory that our nation so desperately needed. By the second year of the war, I was no longer just a participant. I had become an integral part of larger operations that could shift entire battlefronts. My squadron was tasked with intercepting enemy bombers, providing escort for Allied aircraft, and engaging in dogfights that demanded absolute precision. Every flight was a test of skill, endurance, and nerve. The stakes were no longer personal survival alone. The lives of entire units, the success of critical missions, and the fate of civilians rested on our shoulders. One of my first major operations involved defending a key supply route that the enemy aimed to disrupt. Intelligence had identified a formation of bombers approaching with the intent to destroy vital resources. As our formation climbed into the clouds, tension crackled in the air like static. I could feel the adrenaline coursing through me, sharpening my senses, heightening my awareness of every movement around me. The first enemy aircraft appeared as tiny silhouettes against the dawn sky, and suddenly the serene expanse of clouds became a battlefield. Engaging multiple enemy fighters required more than training. It demanded instinct and courage under fire. I recall the first moment I had to make a split-second decision. A bomber was straying from its formation, and enemy fighters were closing in. Diving at full speed, I maneuvered into position, tracking each movement with meticulous focus. The roar of my engine drowned out everything else, but I remained aware of my altitude, my speed, my surroundings. With a precise burst of fire, the threat was neutralized, and the bomber stayed on course. That moment, the first time I realized my actions could directly save lives, was profoundly transformative. As the months passed, my confidence and skill grew. I began to anticipate enemy patterns, predict maneuvers, and exploit weaknesses in formation. Dogfights became a calculated chess game in the skies, where patience, timing, and calculated risk were more valuable than brute speed or aggressive attacks. Each mission added layers to my understanding of aerial combat, the physics of flight, the psychology of enemy pilots, and the delicate balance between aggression and caution. Not all missions ended in triumph. I witnessed comrades shot down, planes engulfed in flames, and the devastating reality of war up close. Every loss was a stark reminder of mortality and the fine line separating life and death. But even in these moments, I found purpose. Each survival, each victory was a tribute to those who had fallen, a commitment to honor their sacrifice by fighting with precision and determination. Through these operations, I began to earn recognition. Officers noted my strategic thinking and composure under pressure. My peers respected my ability to lead, to make critical decisions with clarity, and to remain calm when chaos threatened to consume the sky. Awards and commendations followed, each symbolizing not just personal achievement, but the collective effort and trust within our unit. I learned that heroism was not measured by audacity alone, but by responsibility, foresight, and the unwavering dedication to protect others. One of the defining moments of my career occurred during a massive offensive to reclaim a critical airfield. The enemy had fortified the area, deploying anti-aircraft guns and patrolling fighters. Our mission was to neutralize the defenses, provide air support, and secure the airfield for advancing ground troops. The operation demanded flawless coordination, precise timing, and courage in the face of overwhelming odds. As our planes approached, flak exploded around us, a deadly storm of metal and fire. I maneuvered through the chaos, guiding my squadron, engaging enemy fighters, and maintaining a calm focus despite the roar of battle. The operation was a success, and I felt an unprecedented mixture of pride, relief, and the sobering awareness of the cost of victory. Personal triumphs in these missions were inseparable from loss. I carried the weight of friends who did not return, the grief of families left behind, and the haunting memories of destruction. Yet, each challenge shaped me, forging resilience, adaptability, and a deep understanding of what it meant to serve and protect. My skills evolved beyond piloting. They encompassed leadership, strategy, and the ability to inspire trust and confidence in those under my command. By the end of this period, I was no longer the inexperienced 18-year-old who had first taken to the skies. I had become a seasoned pilot, recognized for my tactical acumen, composure, and bravery. I had witnessed the fragility and strength of life, the chaos and order of battle, and the profound impact one individual could have when courage, skill, and strategy converged. The summer of that year brought some of the fiercest battles I had ever faced. Our unit was deployed to a contested front, where control of the skies was critical for the success of ground operations. Intelligence reports indicated that enemy squadrons were actively intercepting our supply lines, forcing us to engage in large-scale aerial combat. The tension in the air was palpable. Every pilot understood that a single miscalculation could be fatal. The first engagement occurred over a dense forest near the front lines. Clouds hung low, providing cover for both sides while the wind howled around us. I remember the moment when enemy fighters emerged from the shadows of the clouds, their silhouettes sharp and menacing against the gray sky. Our squadron immediately assumed formation, scanning the skies for threats. The first shots were fired, and the world transformed into a whirlwind of metal, fire, and smoke. Maneuvering at high speed, I engaged multiple enemy planes. My training and instinct guided every movement, my hands almost moving independently as I adjusted throttle, flaps, and aim. One enemy fighter dove directly at me, trying to force a collision. I tilted my plane sharply, letting the attacker overshoot, and then returned fire with precision. The plane spiraled out of control and crashed far below. The adrenaline rush was unlike anything I had ever experienced, a mixture of fear, exhilaration, and clarity. But heroism was never about isolated victories. It was about the survival and success of the squadron as a whole. During another mission, a wingman's plane was damaged, trailing smoke as it struggled to stay airborne. I took the lead, covering his descent, positioning myself between him and pursuing enemies. The precision required to protect both myself and another pilot while under fire tested every skill I had honed over countless hours. It was not just a test of flying. It was a test of character, decision-making, and courage. Weeks later, we were tasked with escorting bombers on a deep penetration mission into enemy territory. The bombers carried vital supplies that could determine the outcome of an entire campaign. The enemy had laid an ambush, and we faced overwhelming numbers. The sky erupted into chaos, planes diving, firing, and evading in a deadly ballet of speed and skill. I remember locking onto a fast-moving fighter threatening one of the bombers, calculating the trajectory, and executing a maneuver that placed my bullets squarely on target. The threat was eliminated, and the bomber continued its mission. Every successful interception saved lives on the ground and preserved the fragile advantage we held. The physical toll of these battles was immense. Long hours in cramped cockpits, the constant strain of high-speed maneuvers, and the mental pressure of life or death decisions pushed us to the brink. Yet, amidst exhaustion and fear, there were moments of profound clarity and purpose. Each mission was a crucible, forging resilience, discipline, and an unwavering commitment to the cause. During one of the most memorable missions, we encountered an enemy ace known for his cunning tactics and unmatched skill. Engaging him required not just courage, but strategic thinking and anticipation. Every maneuver was a test of wits, predicting his next move while concealing my own intentions. The battle was long and grueling, a deadly dance through clouds and over rugged terrain. At one point, he executed a sudden roll, attempting to gain the upper hand. I anticipated his move, inverted my plane, and positioned myself perfectly for a counterattack. The enemy plane spiraled down, defeated. The exhilaration was immense, but the cost was also stark. Several of our comrades did not return. Their sacrifice reminded me that every victory carried a heavy price. Through these epic air battles, I earned recognition as a pilot capable of both bravery and tactical brilliance. I was awarded medals for courage, strategic acumen, and leadership under fire. More importantly, I had earned the trust and respect of my peers. They knew that in the most harrowing moments, I would act decisively, prioritize the mission, and protect those around me. Yet heroism was not merely about accolades, it was about impact. Each successful mission contributed to the broader war effort, securing supply lines, protecting troops, and undermining enemy operations. I began to understand the profound responsibility carried by every pilot in our unit. We were not just flying machines through the sky. We were instruments of strategy, courage, and hope in a world consumed by conflict. By the end of this period, I had transformed from a novice pilot into a recognized hero of the skies. I had faced death countless times, witnessed loss and destruction, yet persevered through skill, discipline, and sheer determination. My journey was a testament to the fact that courage and excellence in action could influence the course of history, even from the cockpit of a single plane. After months of intense aerial combat, the reality of war began to weigh heavily on me. Each mission carried the possibility of death, and every loss of a comrade added an unshakable burden to my mind. The thrill of flying, once the pure adrenaline of youth, was now intertwined with the profound responsibility of leadership and the psychological toll of witnessing destruction firsthand. There were days when fatigue blurred my judgment, and nights when sleep was impossible because of the images of crashing planes and fallen friends. Yet, discipline was paramount. Hesitation could cost lives, not only my own, but also those of the pilots depending on me. I learned to compartmentalize fear, transforming it into focus, precision, and heightened awareness. Every decision in the cockpit had consequences, and the margin for error was vanishingly small. During this period, I faced some of the most grueling tests of endurance. Missions sometimes lasted over 10 hours, flying at extreme altitudes and temperatures, navigating treacherous weather conditions, and maintaining constant vigilance against enemy fighters. Physical strain was compounded by emotional exhaustion, as the faces of friends and innocent civilians lost in the chaos haunted me. I came to understand that war was not merely a test of skill, it was a trial of resilience, moral fortitude, and the ability to bear unbearable weight without collapsing. Yet, in the midst of these trials, moments of triumph illuminated the darkness. My unit executed a daring operation to disrupt a critical enemy supply route. The mission required precision coordination, seamless communication, and the courage to fly directly into heavily defended airspace. I led a squadron that faced overwhelming odds, engaging multiple enemy fighters while ensuring the bombers reached their target safely. The operation succeeded, with minimal losses on our side. The gratitude of ground forces and the tangible impact of our action were deeply rewarding, reinforcing the belief that courage and discipline could alter the tide of battle. Recognition came in many forms. Medals and commendations were not simply tokens. They were acknowledgments of lives protected, battles won, and sacrifices endured. I was awarded the title of Honored Pilot, a distinction reflecting not only technical skill, but also unwavering commitment and leadership under fire. Yet the accolades carried their own burden. They were reminders of the lives lost alongside us and the heavy responsibility of carrying the hopes of others through perilous skies. I also faced profound moral dilemmas. Every engagement required decisions that balanced strategic objectives against the potential for collateral damage. Civilians were often caught in the crossfire, and each choice carried ethical weight. These moments tested my character, teaching me that heroism was not merely a function of skill or courage, but also of integrity, empathy, and the relentless pursuit of minimizing harm while achieving the mission. Psychologically, I became attuned to the subtleties of human behavior under extreme stress. I learned to read fear, resolve, and hesitation in my comrades, using that awareness to guide them, protect them, and inspire them to act with precision and courage. Leadership, I realized, was not just about issuing orders. It was about understanding the human spirit, nurturing confidence, and instilling a sense of purpose that could withstand the chaos of war. In addition to mental fortitude, physical preparation was crucial. I spent hours in rigorous training, simulating high-G maneuvers, emergency scenarios, and rapid decision-making drills. My body became a finely tuned instrument, capable of enduring extraordinary strain while maintaining clarity and dexterity. The combination of physical mastery, mental discipline, and emotional resilience defined the edge between survival and catastrophe in the unforgiving theater of aerial warfare. Despite the harrowing experiences, camaraderie among pilots was a source of strength. Bonds forged in the heat of combat were unbreakable. Trust, mutual reliance, and shared sacrifice created a brotherhood that transcended fear and exhaustion. Each successful mission reinforced these connections, making it clear that no individual could succeed alone. Heroism was collective, an intricate dance of coordination, courage, and unspoken understanding among comrades who relied on one another for survival. Through these trials, I began to understand the broader significance of my role. Each dogfight, each escort mission, each successful strike against the enemy contributed to the larger war effort. My actions, combined with those of countless others, influenced the outcomes of battles, protected civilians, and ultimately shaped the course of the conflict. The weight of responsibility was immense, yet it was balanced by the profound satisfaction of knowing that skill, courage, and steadfastness could genuinely make a difference in a world torn apart by war. By the end of this chapter of my journey, I had transformed fully from a fledgling pilot into a seasoned, honored veteran. The combination of experience, strategic insight, emotional resilience, and leadership under pressure solidified my position as a crucial asset in the ongoing struggle. I had witnessed the devastating cost of conflict, endured unimaginable pressure, and emerged with the respect of my peers and the recognition of my nation. This period taught me that being a hero was not a matter of luck or raw talent. It was the result of relentless training, calculated courage, and the ability to act decisively under the most extreme conditions. It was about bearing burdens, making impossible choices, and striving to maintain humanity, amid the horrors of war. And it was about understanding that every flight, every maneuver, and every life saved contributed to a legacy far greater than any individual accomplishment. As the war progressed, the intensity of operations increased exponentially. Each sortie carried higher stakes, and intelligence reports suggested that the enemy was concentrating elite fighter squadrons to defend critical territories. By this stage, I had logged hundreds of missions, yet no amount of experience could fully prepare anyone for the orchestration of the final decisive battles. The final missions required meticulous planning, precise timing, and unwavering focus. We were tasked with penetrating heavily defended airspace, neutralizing artillery positions, and providing cover for advancing ground forces. The slightest error could result in catastrophic losses, not just for myself or my squadron, but for entire operations affecting thousands of soldiers. One of the most pivotal missions involved a coordinated strike on a fortified enemy command center. Intelligence had indicated the presence of elite pilots with advanced aircraft, making the operation exceedingly dangerous. The briefing emphasized precision, coordinated formations, and constant communication. I could feel the weight of responsibility settle on my shoulders. The success of this mission could directly influence the war's outcome. As we took off in tight formation, the tension was palpable. Every engine roar, every maneuver, every glance at my instruments and squadron members carried the knowledge that we were moving into an extremely high-risk zone. Enemy aircraft appeared on radar almost immediately, and a deadly dance of maneuvering, evasion, and strategic counterattacks began. During this operation, I faced the most skilled adversaries I had ever encountered. The enemy pilots anticipated our formations, attempted to outflank us, and engaged with a level of precision that forced me to push every skill I had developed to its limits. I relied on every instinct, every calculated maneuver, and the trust I had built with my squadron. The air became a battlefield of split-second decisions, where hesitation could mean death. Amid the chaos, I realized that leadership was more than issuing commands. It was about projecting calm, instilling confidence, and making choices that kept the squadron alive while completing the mission. Every order was calculated to minimize risk and maximize impact. The combination of strategic foresight and quick adaptability determined our survival. Despite overwhelming odds, the mission succeeded. We neutralized key defensive positions and provided crucial cover for ground troops, significantly weakening enemy capabilities in the region. The victory was hard-won, earned through courage, skill, and relentless determination. The experience solidified my understanding that in war, heroism is measured not by isolated acts, but by the ability to influence outcomes that protect countless lives. However, these final missions were not without sacrifice. Several of my comrades did not return, and their absence left an indelible mark on me. The loss reinforced the fragility of life in combat and the heavy cost of responsibility. Each death was a reminder that every action mattered, that every maneuver, every decision could tip the balance between life and death, victory and failure. Psychologically, these operations demanded unparalleled resilience. Fatigue, stress, and emotional burden threatened to overwhelm, yet discipline and focus provided a lifeline. I learned to compartmentalize fear, channel adrenaline into precision, and maintain clarity under pressure. The crucible of combat shaped a mindset that balanced caution with audacity, ensuring survival while achieving objectives. The culmination of these final missions led to recognition at the highest levels. Reports of successful operations reached commanding officers, and commendations acknowledged not only tactical skill but also leadership, courage, and strategic thinking under extreme conditions. The title of honored pilot was formalized, but its significance transcended personal glory. It symbolized the contribution to the collective effort that ultimately shaped the course of the war. Reflecting on this period, I understood that every challenge, every confrontation with elite enemy forces had been a stepping stone. From the early days of learning basic maneuvers to leading complex, high-stakes operations, every experience converged to create the capacity to influence history. Heroism was forged in the crucible of pressure, necessity, and unwavering dedication. This chapter of my journey illuminated the essence of being a war pilot: technical mastery, psychological resilience, and moral clarity. The war demanded not only skill and courage, but also an ethical compass to navigate the complexities of life and death decisions. Each mission was a test of judgment, strategy, and endurance, teaching lessons that went beyond combat and into the understanding of responsibility, sacrifice, and the profound value of life. By the end of these defining operations, I had transformed completely. The combination of skill, leadership, experience, and resilience shaped me into a pilot capable of influencing the war's outcome. I emerged with the respect of my peers, the acknowledgement of commanders, and the enduring memory of those who had sacrificed alongside me. These missions became a testament to the extraordinary demands of aerial warfare and the extraordinary capacity of human endurance, courage, and commitment to a cause greater than oneself. When the war finally ended, the world began to exhale, but for those of us who had lived through the constant roar of engines, the staccato bursts of gunfire, and the relentless pressure of high-stakes missions, peace was a strange and alien landscape. The first days back in the airbase were surreal. The absence of enemy fighters, the silence of the skies, and the lack of immediate danger created a void that was difficult to reconcile. The official recognition came gradually but profoundly. Commendations from commanding officers, letters of acknowledgement from the government, and public ceremonies marked a transition from soldier to hero. Being named an honored pilot was not merely a formality. It was a recognition of skill, courage, and the ability to influence outcomes under the most extreme conditions. Each medal, each certificate symbolized not only the missions flown, but also the countless decisions made in fractions of a second that had preserved lives and shaped the battlefield. Yet recognition did not immediately translate to peace of mind. The experiences of war lingered in ways that medals and titles could not erase. Nights were restless. The sound of engines or distant bangs could trigger memories of combat. The exhilaration of aerial maneuvers had been replaced by an aching nostalgia and a profound awareness of mortality. I had witnessed the fragility of life and the cost of human conflict in its most intense form. Understanding that each flight could have been my last, and that the lives of friends and comrades had been intertwined with mine in ways that words could never capture, left an indelible mark. Despite these internal challenges, I committed to sharing the lessons learned during the war. Training new pilots became a mission of its own. I emphasized not only technical skills, maneuvering, precision targeting, and survival tactics, but also mental resilience, decision-making under pressure, and the ethical responsibilities that come with wielding lethal power. Each session with a new pilot was an opportunity to instill a sense of honor, discipline, and the understanding that heroism extends beyond personal glory to the protection and welfare of others. The transition to civilian life was gradual and complex. While accolades and formal recognition were visible, the internal journey was far less tangible. I had to reconcile the exhilarating, high-risk life of combat with the quieter, structured rhythm of peace. Finding meaning outside of missions, aircraft, and squadron camaraderie required patience and reflection. It was in these moments of contemplation that I truly understood the depth of my transformation, from a young, ambitious recruit to a seasoned pilot whose actions had rippled across history. Recognition was accompanied by public attention. Interviews, newspaper articles, and accounts in military journals recounted the missions, highlighting both strategic brilliance and courage. While these narratives celebrated success, they also reminded me of the weight of responsibility. The stories were not just about feats. They were about the meticulous planning, ethical dilemmas, and personal sacrifices that shaped each outcome. Through this lens, I began to see my own life not only as a sequence of actions, but as a contribution to a larger historical tapestry. Beyond the accolades, a deeper satisfaction came from understanding the impact of my contributions. The missions I had flown had facilitated victories, protected soldiers on the ground, and ultimately contributed to the Allied success. Recognition, while meaningful, was secondary to the knowledge that skill, preparation, and composure had saved lives and shaped history. The tangible medals were reminders, but the intangible outcomes, the lives preserved, the strategies executed, the enemies outmaneuvered, were the true legacy. This period also offered the opportunity to mentor and guide the next generation. Sharing experiences, discussing split-second decisions, and explaining the thought processes behind survival and success helped create a culture of excellence. Young pilots were taught not only to fly, but to think critically, remain composed under duress, and appreciate the gravity of every mission. The lessons went beyond aviation. They were lessons in responsibility, courage, and the power of human determination. As I reflected on my journey, I realized that becoming an honored pilot was not solely about technical mastery or courage. It was about growth, resilience, and the capacity to carry the weight of consequence. War had been both a crucible and a classroom. Each flight, each mission, each decision under pressure shaped character, judgment, and perspective. The transformation was profound. A young, inexperienced recruit had become a symbol of excellence, a repository of knowledge, and a mentor for those who would continue the fight for peace and freedom. In this post-war chapter, I also confronted the personal cost of service. Friendships forged in the skies were tinged with loss, and memories of fallen comrades remained vivid. The mental and emotional scars were invisible yet persistent, reminding me that heroism is inseparable from sacrifice. Acknowledging this duality allowed me to process the past and channel it into constructive action. Training, mentoring, and contributing to historical understanding. Through reflection, I came to understand that my journey from novice to hero was not linear or simple. It was shaped by failure and triumph, fear and courage, loss and achievement. Each phase of my career, initial training, early missions, advanced combat operations, and final decisive missions contributed to a mosaic of experience that was both personal and historical. The recognition as an honored pilot was a culmination of decades of dedication, skill, and endurance. Ultimately, this chapter reinforced a central truth. The measure of a pilot, or any hero, is not only in victories or medals, but in the ability to grow, adapt, and uphold integrity under pressure. War tested every dimension of human capability, technical skill, emotional resilience, ethical judgment, and strategic thinking. Emerging from this crucible, I carried both the pride of accomplishment and the humility born from witnessing the extremes of human courage and suffering. Returning to civilian life was a challenge I had not fully anticipated. The war had defined my existence for years. Every decision, every flight, every engagement had demanded focus, courage, and clarity. Suddenly, those parameters vanished, and I found myself in a world that no longer measured skill by life or death outcomes, but by routines and mundane responsibilities. The skies were quiet, and the adrenaline that once dictated my heartbeat was replaced by a strange emptiness. At first, peace felt unnatural. I would wake in the morning and instinctively check flight plans, monitor airspace, or anticipate threats that no longer existed. My mind remained in tactical mode, evaluating situations, calculating risk, and predicting outcomes. I had to consciously retrain my brain to understand that the world I returned to operated under different rules of negotiation, patience, and long-term planning, rather than immediate, lethal consequence. One of the first lessons I embraced was patience. War had taught me the power of rapid decision-making, but peace demanded reflection. I learned to balance instinct with thoughtfulness, to understand the value of timing in negotiation, conversation, and influence. Each interaction, whether mentoring a young pilot, speaking at a ceremony, or simply engaging with fellow citizens, required a measured approach. The discipline that had saved lives in combat became a guiding principle in everyday challenges. Mentorship became central to my purpose. Teaching the next generation of pilots, both military and civilian, allowed me to pass on hard-earned wisdom. I emphasized that flying was not merely about skill, but about responsibility, the moral weight of controlling a machine capable of both protection and destruction. Through stories, simulations, and first-hand accounts, I conveyed the nuances of aerial strategy, split-second judgment, and ethical decision-making. Each lesson was imbued with the reality that heroism encompasses accountability, integrity, and the courage to act wisely under pressure. Yet it was not only about teaching others. Reflection allowed me to understand myself. I pondered the value of courage, the nature of fear, and the importance of resilience. The exhilaration of flight and the terror of combat had forced me to confront my limitations and push beyond them. I realized that true heroism is inseparable from humility, acknowledging one's strengths while remaining aware of one's vulnerabilities. This self-awareness became a cornerstone of my post-war identity. Public recognition continued, but it felt different in peacetime. Interviews, newspaper features, and formal ceremonies honored accomplishments. Yet I understood that the real significance lay in the unseen impact. Lives saved, missions completed, and the stability brought to war-torn regions. Medals symbolized achievement, but the enduring legacy was the ripple effect of each action. The decisions made in moments of danger had consequences that extended far beyond the individual, shaping communities, strategy, and history itself. Personal relationships evolved as well. The bonds forged with comrades during combat remained profound, though distant from civilian life. Letters, reunions, and shared memories became touchstones of understanding, connecting those who had witnessed and survived extremes of experience. At the same time, I had to navigate relationships with family, friends, and society at large. People who could not fully comprehend the intensity of wartime experiences. Patience, empathy, and communication became tools for bridging that gap. The moral lessons of war were constant companions. I had witnessed the devastating cost of conflict, the fragility of life, and the consequences of choices made in seconds. This awareness shaped my perspective on leadership, ethics, and human behavior. I understood that power is most responsibly wielded when tempered by conscience, and that influence carries the responsibility to protect, guide, and preserve rather than dominate or destroy. These principles informed every post-war decision, whether professional, personal, or civic. Even in times of quiet, the memory of the skies remained vivid. The sensation of altitude, the roar of engines, and the discipline required to master flight lingered as both memory and metaphor. Flying had taught me about precision, anticipation, and the value of training, themes that translated seamlessly into the broader context of life. Each challenge, whether in work, mentorship, or daily interactions, could be approached with the same rigor and focus applied to aerial combat. One of the most profound lessons was resilience. The war had demanded an unyielding commitment to adaptation, problem-solving, and persistence. Post-war life required the same qualities, albeit in different forms. Navigating bureaucracy, mentoring young pilots, managing public expectations, and contributing to historical knowledge all demanded patience, endurance, and mental fortitude. I realized that resilience was not merely surviving hardship, but transforming experience into wisdom and guidance for others. Legacy became a central focus. I sought to ensure that the experiences, strategies, and insights gained during the war would benefit future generations. Writing memoirs, contributing to historical records, and participating in training programs allowed me to preserve knowledge. These efforts were not motivated by fame, but by responsibility, to honor those who had sacrificed, to teach those who would follow, and to provide context for understanding the human experience of war. Ultimately, becoming an honored pilot was more than a title or recognition. It was a lifelong journey of growth, reflection, and service. The path from novice to hero had been defined by courage, skill, and determination, but post-war life demanded a different kind of heroism, one of patience, mentorship, ethical guidance, and personal integrity. The transformation was ongoing, extending far beyond medals, missions, and public accolades. Through these years, I came to understand that true accomplishment is measured not only by acts of bravery, but by the ability to translate experience into positive influence. By teaching, mentoring, and sharing lessons learned, I could multiply the impact of every action taken in the skies. My life became a testament to the idea that heroism extends beyond moments of danger. It resides in the capacity to shape, guide, and inspire others long after the battle has ended. Flight is not merely a physical act, it is a profound mental and emotional journey. When I first climbed into the cockpit, I understood quickly that controlling a machine capable of speed, power, and lethal precision demanded more than technical skill. It required a mindset honed by discipline, courage, and a deep respect for the forces I was harnessing. In those early hours, the sky taught me lessons about responsibility, foresight, and the delicate balance between control and surrender. Every maneuver, every ascent, every dive was a negotiation between my instinct and the laws of nature, between ambition and prudence. Heroism, I discovered, is inseparable from awareness. It is not simply a title awarded for acts of courage. It is the culmination of countless choices, decisions made under pressure, often in isolation, and always with consequences beyond the self. Each mission I flew during the war required me to weigh risks, not only to my own life, but to the lives of comrades, civilians, and the broader course of the conflict. Heroism is the conscious recognition that every action ripples outward, that courage without responsibility can become recklessness, and that true valor emerges when skill, strategy, and ethical judgment intersect. The sky, in its vastness, also teaches humility. No matter how experienced a pilot becomes, the forces of nature, the wind, weather, visibility, and mechanical variables remain beyond full control. Understanding this instilled a respect that extended beyond aviation. In life, as in flight, there are variables that cannot be fully controlled. True mastery lies not in dominance, but in adaptation, anticipation, and a constant willingness to learn from every challenge and every failure. Humility, coupled with resilience, became the guiding principle that informed both my combat strategies and my post-war philosophy. Observation and patience, essential in flight, became moral virtues. Watching the movement of the enemy, interpreting subtle shifts in the environment, and waiting for the optimal moment to act, taught me that heroism often requires restraint. Impulsive bravery can be disastrous. Measured courage, informed by analysis and ethical reflection, is transformative. This principle guided not only aerial engagements, but also post-war mentorship, decision-making, and interactions with society. Heroism is as much about knowing when to act as it is about knowing how. Each life saved, each mission successfully completed, reinforced the interconnectedness of human endeavor. The war, in its brutality, revealed the fragility and resilience of humanity simultaneously. Heroism, therefore, is not merely personal. It is relational. It emerges from understanding that one's actions affect the lives, opportunities, and safety of others. Protecting comrades, minimizing civilian casualties, and pursuing objectives with precision and care were not just professional duties. They were moral imperatives that defined the essence of what it meant to be a pilot and ultimately a human being. Beyond duty, there is the artistry of flight. Each maneuver, each engagement, carries an elegance that transcends mere mechanics. The rhythm of ascent and descent, the interplay of velocity, altitude, and spatial awareness forms a kind of choreography, a dance with physics, intuition, and timing. In mastering these patterns, I came to understand that heroism involves the fusion of technical expertise, creativity, and ethical intention. Just as a painter balances color, light, and form, a pilot must balance speed, strategy, and conscience. This synthesis elevates ordinary skill into something greater, an expression of human capability at its finest. Reflection on mortality also shapes the philosophy of heroism. In war, life is fragile, often measured in moments. This awareness does not induce fear alone. It cultivates clarity, focus, and appreciation for the present. Each sortie, each engagement, was an exercise in mindfulness, requiring complete immersion in the task, attention to detail, and anticipation of countless possible outcomes. Surviving these experiences imparted a profound understanding. The significance of life lies not in its duration alone, but in the depth of engagement, responsibility, and integrity brought to every moment. Heroism extends into legacy. The actions of today influence the choices and opportunities of tomorrow. In mentoring younger pilots, sharing experiences with historians, and recounting lessons learned, I realized that true heroism is a multiplier. One life, informed by courage, strategy, and moral clarity, can create a cascade of influence, saving countless lives, shaping decisions, and guiding future generations. Legacy is the bridge between individual action and collective impact, demonstrating that heroism is not confined to the battlefield, but resonates across time and circumstance. Finally, I have come to view heroism as an ongoing commitment, not a static title. It is cultivated daily through reflection, action, and ethical engagement. Each decision, no matter how small, carries the potential to embody or undermine the values that define a hero: courage, responsibility, integrity, humility, and service. The journey from novice pilot to war hero was a crucible that revealed these truths, but the path did not end with medals or accolades. It continued in the practice of living intentionally, mentoring others, and striving to apply the principles learned in the sky to every aspect of life. Through this lens, I understand that my contribution to the war effort was both extraordinary and ordinary. Extraordinary in the risks faced, the lives influenced, and the legacy created. Ordinary in that it reflects universal human potential, the capacity to act with courage, insight, and moral clarity in the face of challenge. My story, therefore, is not merely one of individual achievement, but a testament to the possibilities that emerge when skill, responsibility, and conscience converge. The philosophy of flight and the meaning of heroism intertwine, revealing a profound truth. Mastery of one's environment, skillful application of knowledge, and ethical discernment are inseparable. The sky was both classroom and proving ground, shaping the principles that guided me through war and peace alike. Heroism, as I have come to understand, is the conscious choice to apply these principles, to influence positively, and to create a legacy that transcends personal gain, inspiring others to navigate their own challenges with courage, integrity, and vision. Not every mission was about strategy or glory. Some flights were exercises in endurance, waiting for hours above enemy lines, the engines humming beneath me as I watched the clouds shift and swirl. The solitude of the cockpit forced reflection. I thought about home, about friends and family, about the country we were fighting for, yet above all, I thought about responsibility, the lives depending on my decisions. Each sortie was not just a test of skill, but a test of character. Mistakes were costly. A misjudged maneuver could mean destruction of our formation, loss of comrades, or civilian casualties. I remember one night over the European front. Our squadron was tasked with intercepting enemy bombers targeting a vital supply line. Visibility was near zero, flares lighting the clouds in ghostly patterns. We were exhausted from days of consecutive missions. Yet, in those moments, clarity came. The world narrowed to cockpit instruments, the distant silhouette of enemy aircraft, and the rhythm of our wings cutting through darkness. Decisions had to be instantaneous, precise, and coordinated. My training, instinct, and accumulated experience converged. When the first enemy bomber fell under our coordinated attack, a rush of relief mixed with fear and responsibility. Each victory felt fragile, every success a delicate balance between skill and chance. Not all victories were physical, some were psychological. Maintaining composure under extreme stress, comforting a younger pilot who had lost his confidence, or negotiating with Allied units to prevent friendly fire incidents. Heroism, I realized, was not always visible or celebrated. It often existed quietly in acts of leadership, mentorship, and moral courage. The courage to make the right call when no one else understood the stakes. These stories, untold in newspapers or official reports, shaped the war effort just as much as the large-scale battles. There were moments of terror, anti-aircraft fire tearing through the sky, engine failures mid-flight, losing contact with my squadron, all tested not just skill, but resilience. Survival depended on staying calm, calculating options, and trusting instinct. Once, after a mission went awry, and I was separated from the formation, I spent hours navigating alone, relying solely on maps, the sun, and memory. By the time I landed safely, I understood a fundamental truth. Courage without composure is useless. True heroism thrives in the mind as much as in action. Through all these experiences, I began to see patterns. Predators in the sky, enemy fighters, were like chess players, each move calculated, each bluff deliberate. I learned to anticipate, to deceive, to use the environment to my advantage. Maneuvers became like poetry in motion, a dance of precision, timing, and awareness. Every day, every sortie honed these skills, not just for survival, but to protect others and to contribute meaningfully to the larger mission. The camaraderie forged in these skies was unparalleled. We relied on each other in ways few can understand. Trust was literal and absolute. Every pilot knew that a lapse in judgment from one could cost the lives of many. Bonds formed in fear and triumph became lifelong connections. Even in the quiet aftermath of missions, sitting in a makeshift camp, sharing stories and fears, we built resilience that extended beyond the battlefield. These relationships, anchored in trust and shared experience, were an integral part of the war effort and the foundation of heroism. Years after the war, I returned home, carrying medals, scars, and memories. The world had changed, yet the lessons of the skies remained with me. I understood that heroism is not defined by public recognition or accolades, but by the integrity and courage displayed in moments that test every fiber of one's being. Each mission, each life saved, each act of composure under pressure contributed to a larger tapestry of service, responsibility, and human connection. I also realized that survival itself carries moral weight. Those who lived bore witness to the sacrifices of others. Every victory carried the echo of loss, every award shadowed by the memory of comrades who did not return. Reflection became an essential part of life, honoring the fallen, learning from mistakes, and striving to guide future generations with wisdom earned in fire and sky. Legacy is more than a story told. It is the influence left behind. Teaching young pilots, sharing wartime experiences, and instilling values of discipline, courage, and ethical decision-making ensured that the principles forged in the sky endured. Heroism, in this sense, is an ongoing responsibility to act with conscience, to mentor, and to preserve the lessons of history. As I look back, I see the full arc of my journey, from an inexperienced young recruit, uncertain and untested, to a pilot who understood the depth of responsibility, the intricacies of aerial combat, and the true meaning of courage. I learned that mastery of skill must be coupled with moral judgment, that fear is not weakness, but a signal to act with thought and courage, and that heroism is a combination of bravery, awareness, and selfless action. My story is a testament to the transformative power of experience. The war tested not just my abilities, but my character. Every hour in the sky, every life impacted, and every decision made under extreme circumstances contributed to a deeper understanding of what it means to serve, to protect, and to endure. Through triumph and tragedy, the principles learned in those critical years shaped the rest of my life, leaving a legacy that extends beyond medals and battles, a legacy of courage, responsibility, and unwavering dedication to a cause greater than oneself.